In 1983, at Madison Square Garden, a boxing trainer walked into a professional fight with a plan that had nothing to do with skill. Panama Lewis stripped the padding out of his fighter's gloves, sent him into the ring against a man who had no idea what was coming, and watched 18 rounds of unprotected punishment destroy a career, a face, and eventually a life. That was not the sport of boxing, that was assault with a referee standing 3 feet away. And it is where this list begins. Before we go further, here is the baseline. Under unified professional boxing rules, a fighter is permitted hand wraps of approved material and length, commission-approved gloves of the correct weight class, a mouthguard, a groin protector, and boxing boots. That is the complete list. Everything else, every hidden edge, every unauthorized substance, every creative addition, is cheating. Boxing has a longer and darker history of it than any other combat sport on the planet. Here is every confirmed, documented, legally verified case we can stand behind. Loaded hand wraps, Resto versus Collins Jr. It is June 16th, 1983. Madison Square Garden, New York. Luis Resto walks to the ring as a significant underdog against Billy Collins Jr., an undefeated prospect with a real future in the sport. Nobody in the arena suspects anything. Collins' own father is in his corner. His trainer Al Certo is watching everything. The fight begins and something immediately feels wrong. Collins is taking shots harder than they should be landing. His face is coming apart in ways that don't match the punches he is absorbing. By the final bell, Collins is unrecognizable. Both eyes swollen shut, his orbital bone fractured, his vision permanently damaged. The crowd at MSG gives Resto a standing ovation for the upset. They have no idea what they just watched. The moment the fight ends, Al Certo reaches into Resto's glove and feels it with his bare hand. The padding is gone, not compressed, not shifted, gone. Removed before the fight by trainer Panama Lewis, who also rubbed a foreign substance into the hand wraps to harden them further. Certo immediately alerts the New York State Athletic Commission. The investigation is swift and unambiguous. The New York State Athletic Commission suspends both Resto and Lewis immediately. Criminal charges follow. Both men are convicted of assault in the second degree, criminal possession of a deadly weapon, and conspiracy. Resto is sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. Lewis receives the same. Both are banned from boxing for life. The conviction stands as the most thoroughly prosecuted case of in-fight cheating in professional boxing history. The real damage was not to the rule book. It was to Billy Collins Jr. He never fought professionally again. His orbital damage was permanent. His confidence was destroyed. On March 6, 1984, less than a year after the fight, Collins died in a single car accident. His father never stopped believing it was not an accident. Panama Lewis and Luis Resto turned a boxing match into an unanswered crime. The conviction gave it a name. It did not give Collins his career back. The Resto-Collins case is the reason modern hand wrap inspection exists in the form it does today. Commission inspectors now physically compress and feel completed wraps rather than visually approving them. Both camps have the right to a representative present during the opponent's wrapping at world title level. Every one of those protocols exists because of what Panama Lewis did in a Madison Square Garden locker room in 1983. The rulebook is tighter because one trainer decided to make it necessary. Vaseline excess, the greasing of Floyd Mayweather. It is July 7th, 2007. The MGM Grand Garden Arena, Las Vegas. Oscar de la Hoya versus Floyd Mayweather Jr., one of the most anticipated fights of the decade. Between rounds, inside Mayweather's corner, cornerman Rafael Garcia is applying Vaseline. Vaseline is legal. It is the standard-approved lubricant permitted on a fighter's face to reduce cut risk from punches. Garcia is not keeping it on the face. He is spreading it across Mayweather's shoulders, his upper arms, his body, anywhere an opponent might try to grip or clinch. A Nevada State Athletic Commission inspector stationed at ringside catches it during the fight. He physically wipes down Mayweather's body between rounds. The fight continues. Nobody stops the bout. De La Hoya's camp files a formal complaint immediately after the final bell. They argue that the grease made Mayweather's body impossibly slippery during inside exchanges, that punches were deflecting off lubricated shoulders rather than landing clean, and that clinch control was compromised throughout the fight. The Nevada State Athletic Commission investigates and confirms the violation. Rafael Garcia is suspended. The Mayweather camp is fined $200,000. The commission cites the clear rule prohibiting application of any substance beyond the face and above the ears. The real reason this matters beyond the fine is physics. Vaseline reduces friction. In a fight as technically precise as Mayweather versus De La Hoya, where inside work, clinch control and punch deflection are central to the tactical battle, even marginal lubrication on the shoulders changes the geometry of every exchange. Against a defensive genius already operating at elite level, it is an edge that should not exist and was deliberately created. Greasing is the most commonly suspected form of in-fight cheating in boxing because the substance itself is legal and the violation is only in the location of application. By the time an inspector intervenes, the rounds it affected cannot be undone. The $200,000 fine established a financial consequence. The suspension established personal accountability. But the rounds already fought with greased shoulders belong to Mayweather regardless of what came afterward. Illegal taping patterns, Pacquiao versus Cotto. It is November 14, 2009, the MGM Grand Garden Arena, Las Vegas. Manny Pacquiao is preparing to fight Miguel Cotto for the WBO welterweight title. In the locker room before the fight, Cotto's team makes a formal request. They want a representative present to observe Pacquiao's hand-wrapping. The request is within their rights. At world title level, both camps are entitled to have an observer present during the opponent's hand preparation. Pacquiao's team objects to the level of observation being requested. A dispute breaks out in the locker room before either fighter has thrown a single punch. The tension is significant enough that commission officials have to intervene to resolve it. The wrapping proceeds under joint supervision. Both camps' representatives are present. The wraps are completed, inspected, and approved. The fight goes ahead. Pacquiao stops Cotto in the 12th round. The Nevada State Athletic Commission reviews the locker room dispute as part of standard post-event reporting. The broader issue raised by Cotto's team, whether observation standards during hand-wrapping were consistent and protective enough across commissions at world title level, enters the formal conversation about pre-fight protocols. The real reason the Pacquiao-Cotto wrapping dispute resonated so widely is that it arrived in the context of a broader question the boxing world was already asking about Pacquiao's extraordinary punch power. A fighter moving up through multiple weight classes and stopping significantly larger opponents generates a level of scrutiny that follows him into the locker room. Whether that scrutiny was justified in this specific case is a separate question from whether the observation right Cotto's team exercised was legitimate. It was legitimate. It is part of the rules. And the dispute over exercising it made those rules more visible to the sport's wider audience. The right of both camps to observe opponent hand-wrapping at world title level is now a standard contractual and regulatory expectation in major professional boxing. The Pacquiao-Cotto locker room dispute is one of the most prominent moments that placed that right under public examination. Thumbless gloves, the eye injury epidemic. Through the 1980s, professional boxing produces a quiet epidemic that the sport's mainstream coverage almost entirely ignores. Fighters are suffering detached retinas, corneal lacerations, and permanent vision damage at a documented and measurable rate, not from punches to the eye, but from thumbs. The standard professional boxing glove of that era has an attached but free-moving thumb. In clinches, tie-ups, and missed punches, that independent thumb finds eye sockets. It requires no malicious intent. The design itself is the weapon. The boxing public of the 1980s is largely unaware that the equipment used in professional fights is actively contributing to career-ending eye injuries across the sport. The Nevada State Athletic Commission and New York State Athletic Commission both moved toward mandating thumb-attached gloves through the late 1980s and into the 1990s. Designs where the thumb is sewn directly to the body of the glove, eliminating its independent range of motion entirely. The IBF, WBC, and WBA all incorporate thumb-attached glove requirements into their championship regulations in the years that follow. The real reason it took as long as it did is that the boxing glove manufacturing industry resisted redesign, fighters resisted unfamiliar equipment, and commissions moved at the pace commissions always move, slowly, reactively, and only after medical evidence accumulates past the point of comfortable ignorance. The thumb-attached glove mandate is one of the most genuinely protective equipment changes in boxing history. It arrived too late for the fighters who lost careers and vision in the decade before it became law. Every modern boxing glove carries its legacy in a single stitched seam. Performance-enhancing substances, the blood-testing dispute that changed professional boxing. It is 2009, and the sport is trying to make the fight it has wanted for years. Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather Jr., the negotiation collapses over one issue. Mayweather's team demands Olympic-style random blood testing in the weeks preceding the fight, including blood draws in the days immediately before the bout. Pacquiao's team refuses, citing concerns that blood draws too close to fight night would affect their fighters' strength and stamina. The fight does not happen. It will not happen for 6 years. The boxing world splits immediately and loudly. Half the fan base interprets Pacquiao's refusal as evidence of something to hide. The other half interprets Mayweather's demand as a contractual tactic designed to prevent a fight he did not want to take. At the time of the dispute, no governing body mandates the specific testing protocol Mayweather demands. The World Anti-Doping Agency's standards exist, but are not uniformly adopted across boxing commissions. USADA, the United States Anti-Doping Agency, is not yet standard practice in professional boxing at any level. The Nevada State Athletic Commission and the major sanctioning bodies are operating a sport at world title level without the independent anti-doping infrastructure that other professional sports had already adopted. The real reason the blood testing dispute was so explosive is that EPO, erythropoietin, a performance-enhancing drug that increases red blood cell production and dramatically improves stamina and recovery, had already been documented in professional cycling and other endurance sports at the elite level. The question of whether it had entered professional boxing was not paranoid speculation. It was a reasonable question given the documented history of PED use across elite sport globally. Boxing's testing infrastructure at the time was not equipped to answer it definitively. The direct legacy of the Pacquiao-Mayweather testing dispute is the accelerated adoption of USADA and VADA, the Voluntary Anti-Doping Association, testing programs across professional boxing. Today, most major promotions at world title level include independent anti-doping testing as a standard contractual condition. That infrastructure was not in place before 2009. The fight that never happened because of a disagreement over a needle is the reason it exists now. When Pacquiao and Mayweather finally fought in May 2015, both fighters were tested under USADA protocols. The sport had changed in the 6 years the fight took to make. The verdict on all of it. Every rule tightened in this video exists because someone found the gap in the version that came before it. Panama Lewis found the gap in glove inspection. Rafael Garcia found the gap in between rounds oversight. The thumbless glove era found the gap in equipment safety standards. The blood testing dispute found the gap in anti-doping infrastructure. Boxing does not change its rules in anticipation of cheating. It changes them in response to it. After the damage is already done, after the career is already over, after the fight is already decided by something that was never supposed to be inside the ring. That is boxing's honest truth. The sport is always one Panama Lewis away from the next rule that should have existed already. If this gave you something new to think about, stick around, there's more coming. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what's next.